Is working. Good. You're on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Best, and today I'm going to be talking to you about web browsers. Now, most of you should have used web browser at some point in your life thus far. They're fairly common, and today they're one of the main programs that we use on our computer. And a web browser simply is a program that allows you to access some sort of site on the internet. And it does this by, when you type in the address for a site, it basically gets the code for the website, interprets that code, and then creates a graphical representation of the website that you can then interact with however it is that you need to use it. Now, one of the first web browsers came out in November of 1994. It was the Netscape Navigator. Fun fact about the Netscape Navigator, while it is currently not in use today, it is basically the spiritual precursor to what we know as Firefox. But that did not happen until quite a few years later. In 1995, Microsoft released its first public version of its Internet Explorer, which it has since updated and has continually shipped out with every new version of the Office, or with the Microsoft Windows operating system. The next year, in July of 1996, a Norwegian company released Opera version 2.0, which was the first public release of the Opera web browser. Of all the web browsers, that one is, as far as I know, the only web browser that started off being only available commercially. In June of 2003, Apple released its version of a web browser, which is known as the Safari browser. The internet browser that we know and love as Firefox, the first version of that was not released until November of 2004. However, the Mozilla Foundation basically took over the base code and a lot of the intentions behind the Netscape Navigator browser in 1998. And then most recently, in December of 2008, Google released its own web browser known as Google Chrome. Now, despite Google Chrome being one of the newest web browsers, it has one of the highest market shares. The market share for a web browser is basically there are ways out there for companies to figure out what web browser you're using when you use their sites. And through all of the data that's collected, they can tell what percentage of the people out there are using which browsers. And as you can see, the top three are Firefox, Chrome, and Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is one of the heaviest used ones because, as I've said, it is mainly shipped with every version of the Microsoft Windows operating system. Opera, being around also one of the longest times, still holds a decent percent of the market share at 2.2%, but it sadly has not really increased much more than that. Now, that means that there's only 0.7% of the market share out there that is used for other web browsers instead of just these 5. Now, one reason why Google Chrome has risen in popularity over the years is because of all the problems that have arisen through the use of web browsers. And one of those main problems is compatibility. There was once a time where people would go to, say, yahoo.com in Internet Explorer, and it would load one way, and then when they opened that exact same page in Firefox, it would look completely different. And that was all in how the web browsers conformed to the web standards set forth by the World Wide Web Consortium. Now, the W3C, as it's known, basically helps to create standards for how web browsers should use the hypertext markup language with its recent version of HTML5, and other things such as cascading style sheets and the application programming interfaces, especially since a lot of development today has moved more towards web applications instead of just standalone programs that you can use on your computer. Another main thing that has really helped Chrome is the speed that it's got. Google Chrome, when it was first released, was seen as one of the fastest browsers on the web. And that was not only in its memory usage, but also its rendering ability. And this is an area that all of the web browsers have recently tried very hard to increase. The rendering capability is basically when a web browser tries to graphically create that web page on your computer. And like all programs on a computer, a web browser needs memory. And the more memory that a web browser needs, at times the slower the computer itself will run. So having a small memory footprint for a web browser can help your computer as a whole run faster, and therefore you don't necessarily see a slowdown in your speed. Security is a major factor in a lot of browsers today. Security for most browsers can be as simple as creating a way to encrypt any passwords that you were to use and allow for secure browsing on the internet. But it can also, by some web browsers, allow for a site that has been known to have malware or malicious software on there to give you a warning by checking security certificates and other factors. So that way when you may attempt to go to that site, not knowing that anything bad is there, then it will warn you so you can, if you want to, shy away from that. And web browsers over the years have greatly tried to increase their usability. And usability essentially comes down to how easy is the program itself to use. Is it laid out well? Can it be easily used if you need to change from one thing to another? And that has recently come about with being able to use multiple tabs, being able to customize your browser the way you want with various enhancements, be it any add-on, say through Firefox, the Google Chrome App Store, or the various other ways to add add-ons to the other browsers. Now, the future of web browsers, with the way that they've been being enhanced, is a very interesting future. From all the advancements that they have made, it is easy to tell that security, usability, the web standards, conformity should be getting better with each new version. Firefox recently, as of I believe the last year, has started working on a rapid release cycle. So whereas it took probably a year and a half to go from version 3 to version 4, recently we have seen a jump from version 4 now to version 7, if not beyond. And the ability to meet all these goals and standards for the web browsers while keeping up those release cycles should provide a lot of innovation. But Google, when it was creating its Chrome web browser, rethought the idea of the web browser. Most web browsers have a address bar that you can input text in for the web address that will take you to the website. And most browsers then also have another bar for a search engine, which you can type in a search query and use the search browser of your choice. When Chrome was released, it did not have both bars, only had one. And that one bar, depending on the information you typed in, could do one or the other. So you didn't have to worry about both input boxes, you just had one to worry about. And while Google was working on their web browser, they started realizing that today we use the web browser probably more than any other program on our computer. It is something we use for music, movies, all of you have heard of YouTube. So the ability to use the web browser today has greatly increased. And because of that, they thought, well, what happens if we made, the computer itself basically a web browser? Instead of having to wait for your computer to start and to load and then wait a good 10, 15 seconds more for the web browser to pop up. What if when you turn your computer on, it was already at the, it was already connected to the internet, it was already a web browser. And with that, they started working on the Google Chrome OS. And the only way you can get the Google Chrome OS currently commercially is through purchasing a Chromebook, which all you have to do is turn it on, and it has complete access to the internet right then and there. The interesting thing about Google Chrome OS is really the only way that you can use it is through web applications. Nothing is stored natively on the computer itself. So if you want to listen to music, if you want to listen to a movie, you have to use that through one of the various web applications out there on the web. Be it a media streaming site, if you were to use Google Docs for your word processing or PowerPoint presentations. So you don't necessarily have to worry about anything happening to the files on your computer, but at the same time, there's the problem of, well, what happens if I don't have access to the internet? Then you may not have full access to any documents that you need. However, with the way that technology and the internet is going today, the chance of that happening, from what Google believes, is very slim. So with the increase of the web standards and everything, web browsers should be getting a major usage increase. But at the same time, it's also possible that we could start seeing more operating systems that are geared towards being on the internet the entire time, as with the Google Chrome OS. So, thank you for your time.
Any questions?
What's your favorite? I mean, web browser.